The chamber of the Galactic Council was silent. 1,000 voices had been loud only moments before, but now not one dared to speak. At the center of the room lay a large book. Its cover was dark, its edges marked with human symbols. Across the top were the words, Deathworld Survival Guide, Human Edition, 847 pages. The title alone brought fear into the hearts of every alien in the chamber. Death worlds were known across the stars. Worlds filled with firestorms, oceans of poison, and creatures with teeth larger than a soldier's arm. No one lived on such worlds. No one except humans. The council had seen many strange things from humans, but this book was beyond strange. A survival guide for a death world? Not a warning, not a list of do not go here rules, but a guide written calmly, as if humans thought survival there was normal. Counselor VRYNN, a tall insectoid with shining eyes, clicked his mandibles. Humans, he whispered, what have you done this time? The human ambassador, a simple man in dark clothes, gave a small smile. He placed his hand behind his back and said nothing. He only nodded toward the book. Another counselor, Luther of the Scale People, leaned forward. 847 pages? What horrors could require such detail? What secrets are you hiding? The book opened with a slow sound. A council aide turned the first page, expecting to see diagrams of traps, weapons, or warnings about monsters. Instead, the chamber filled with silence again. For on the very first page, written in large letters, were only 4 simple words. Pet everything. Fear nothing. The council erupted into cries. Madness, shouted one. Is this a joke? Another screamed. No species can tame a death world, roared a third. But the human did not laugh. He did not even speak. He only waited, as if the book would explain everything. Counselor VRYNN leaned close to the page. His large eyes blinked, confused. Pet everything? Fear nothing? This cannot be serious. Where are the warnings of acid storms? Where are the survival rations, the weapons, the shelters? The aide turned to the next page. Again, there was no fear. Instead, there was a simple sketch of a creature with 4 legs, fur, and bright eyes. Below it, a note in human words. Cat, approach with care. Pet gently. If it purrs, you have made a friend. The chamber shook with confusion. Counselor Luther slammed a clawed hand onto the table. This is a predator. Why would you encourage contact? Another alien, a small feathered scholar, trembled. I have seen this. Cat. It has claws sharper than blades. Yet I watched a human lift one into their arms. The beast purred like a child and did not strike. I thought it was magic, but now it is simply human nature. The book was turned again. A new page showed a dog, its mouth open, full of sharp teeth. The words below read, Dog, loud but loyal, scratched behind the ears. It will protect you. Gasps filled the chamber. Every page turned revealed more strangeness. Horses, birds, even massive beasts that no alien would dare approach. Yet the words were always the same. Touch them. Befriend them. Do not fear. Counselor VRYNN's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of deep fear. Humans, they do not fight death worlds as others do. They embrace them. The human ambassador finally spoke. His voice was calm, almost gentle. We do not survive death worlds by hiding. We survive by learning, by trusting, by reaching out a hand instead of pulling a weapon. Silence fell again. His words sank deep. The counselors looked once more at the heavy book. 847 pages. If every page was like the first, then this was not a guide of fear at all. It was something worse, something stranger. The book did not teach how to avoid danger. It taught how to walk straight into it without fear. One counselor whispered, If humans can tame monsters with a touch, what else can they tame? Eyes turned to the humans. In that moment, the chamber was filled with something greater than fear. It was realization. Realization that the species before them did not think like others. To humans, the universe was not a place of threats. It was a place of friends yet to be made. And that, the counselors thought, was perhaps the most dangerous idea of all. The book remained open, its simple words shining under the chamber lights. Pet everything. Fear nothing. The meeting had only begun, yet already the council felt they were standing at the edge of something they could not understand. Something that might change the galaxy forever. And with that, the arrival of the Human Survival Guide became a story none of them would ever forget. The chamber lights dimmed as the aides carried the heavy human book closer to the center dais. Every alien eye, compound, slit, round, or glowing, was fixed on the strange survival guide. The title still burned in their minds. Deathworld Survival Guide. Human Edition, 847 pages. The first words, pet everything, fear nothing, had already thrown the council into uproar. Yet page after page only deepened the mystery. Counselor Luther's scaled fingers traced the edge of the page. His voice cracked with disbelief. Humans advise petting predators? Dogs, cats, beasts with claws? Madness. On my world, touching such a creature means losing a hand. A dozen voices echoed at once. Perhaps it is a mistranslation. No, I studied their language. It is clear. They cannot mean this literally. No sane mind would. At last, Counselor VRYNN raised a spindly arm for silence. His multifaceted eyes locked onto the human ambassador. Explain. Why does your guide teach friendship with monsters instead of weapons against them? The human smiled faintly, but said nothing. He only gestured for the aide to turn another page. The new page displayed a large creature with thick fur and horns. Beneath the picture, the words read, Horse, calm approach, gentle voice, pet the neck, and trust will grow. Whispers rippled through the chamber. Counselor Tur, a small avian scholar, fluffed his feathers. His voice trembled. I have seen humans ride these beasts. They sit on their backs, as if the creature were a willing partner. No chains, no whips, only trust. Counselor Luther hissed in disbelief. A predator could crush a human in a single strike. Why would they climb onto its back? Tur's feathers quivered. Because the creature lets them. An older counselor, cross of crystalline kind, stood slowly. His body glimmered with pale light. I too have witnessed something. A human diplomat visited my world. We passed near the edge of our jungle. There, a death beast appeared. Its jaws were wide, dripping with venom. We prepared to fire weapons. But the human, he lowered his gun. He stepped forward and placed his hand on the beast's snout. It froze. It lowered its head, and then it walked away. The chamber erupted again, half in fear, half in disbelief. That is impossible. Lies! No weapon, no pheromone, no trick could calm a death beast. But Cross's crystal body pulsed with steady light. I swear on my core, I saw it with my own eyes. Counselor VRYNN leaned closer, mandibles clicking in a nervous rhythm. Then perhaps this guide is not only for humans. Perhaps it is a weapon of the mind. They teach us to abandon fear. They teach us to approach danger. And if we learn their way, we become like them. The thought sent chills across the chamber. The aide turned more pages. Drawings filled the book. Not weapons, not maps, only animals, birds with wide wings, fish with bright scales, even great beasts with tusks. And every description carried the same theme: approach with calm, Touch gently. Trust, and you'll be safe. Counselor Luther growled, frustration shaking his voice. This is not survival. This is madness. On any other world, such advice would lead to certain death. The human ambassador finally spoke, his tone calm, almost amused. Yet on our world, it leads to life. Gasps circled the chamber. Aliens leaned back in their seats, as though the human words carried weight greater than gravity itself. Counselor Tur whispered, almost himself. To them, trust is stronger than fear, even stronger than weapons. The silence that followed was not comfortable. It was heavy, pressing on every mind. Cross, the crystalline elder, bent low, his voice low and sharp. If humans live this way, then their minds are unlike ours. They do not see enemies. They see allies waiting to be found. If they can tame Deathworld creatures, what else can they tame? No one answered. The chamber seemed smaller, the shadows darker. The book sat heavy on its pedestal, as though it contained not only words, but power. The aid closed it with a soft thud. The echo rolled through the chamber like thunder. The counselors avoided each other's gaze. Fear had always been their shield against Deathworlds. But humans walk without it. And now their guide, 847 pages long, offered to share that secret. The question that no one dared ask hung in the air. Was the guide a gift or a warning? The human ambassador's faint smile returned as the lights dimmed further. The meeting was only beginning, and the galaxy would never be the same. The council chamber had grown restless. Words and arguments were no longer enough. Some called the human guide madness. Others whispered it was dangerous wisdom. But all agreed on one thing. The truth had to be tested. So it was decided an ambassador would travel to Earth itself, with human guidance, to see if the strange words, pet everything, fear nothing, were real or only human arrogance written on a page. The chosen ambassador was Counselor Tur, the avian scholar with feathers of pale blue. He was small, cautious, and fearful by nature, but his mind burned with curiosity. If anyone would see clearly, it was him. The journey was short, but the landing was tense. Earth was a known death world, a place cataloged by the Council as hostile to almost all species. Its forests, its seas, its skies, every part swarmed with life that could kill. Yet humans lived here as if it were nothing. Tur stepped down the ramp of the shuttle, his claws clicking nervously against the metal floor. A human waited for him. She wore no armor, carried no weapon, only a soft smile and a leash. At the end of that leash was a large, four-legged creature with sharp teeth and eyes full of fire. The feathers on Tur's neck puffed out at once. He recognized it from a book. The humans called it a dog. The beast barked, a loud sound that cracked through the air like thunder. Tur flinched back, wings twitching. The human knelt and placed a hand on the beast's head. It quieted instantly, tail wagging, tongue lolling out in joy. She looked at Tur. Would you like to pet him? The words felt like a cruel joke. To pet such a beast was to invite death. Yet the woman's calm voice carried no fear, no tension. She reached out and guided the beast closer. Tur's heart pounded in his chest. He could already imagine teeth sinking into his flesh. The end of his mission, the laughter of counselors who warned him. But the human's hand rested steady, her voice soft. He will not harm you. Fear nothing. The words struck him. They were the same words that had filled the chamber back on the station. Fear nothing. With a trembling claw, Tur reached forward. His feathers shook as his talons brushed the creature's head. The fur was warm, softer than he expected. For one long, painful second, he waited for death. It never came. Instead, the dog leaned closer, pressing its head against him. A low, rumbling sound filled the air, not a growl, but something else, Something strange. The creature licked his claw. Tur gasped. It did shows affection? The human only smiled. Yes, he likes you. The dog wagged its tail, pushing against Tur's side with surprising strength. What had once been a beast of terror now stood beside him like a companion. The guide's words were not madness. They were truth. Tur could hardly breathe. His world, his logic, every lesson of survival he had been taught. All of it cracked under the weight of this simple moment. The human rose. Come, there is more to see. They walked through a forest path. The air was filled with the cries of birds, the hum of insects, the distant roar of something large. Every sound made Tur's feathers rise. To him, the forest was alive with threats. Yet the human moved calmly, as if strolling through a garden. A shadow crossed the path ahead. Out from the trees stepped a creature, even larger than the dog. Muscles rippled beneath its fur. Fangs glinted in its mouth. Tur froze in terror. His instincts screamed to flee, to fire, to survive. But the human stepped forward slowly. Her hand raised, palm open, her voice low and soft. The beast's growl faded. Its eyes softened. It lowered its head, sniffing her hand. Then, to Tur's shock, she stroked its fur. The creature leaned into her touch, calm, peaceful. Tur whispered, "You should be dead." She looked back, her eyes calm. Why would I be? It only needed to know I was not afraid. The alien's claws dug into the dirt. His mind reeled. It was true then. The book was no trick. Humans did not survive Deathworlds with weapons or walls. They survived with courage, with trust, with something no other species dare to carry: the refusal to fear. As the sun dipped low and shadows stretched long across the forest, Tur realized his people could never match this. They could build ships, craft weapons, hide in safe worlds. But they could never touch death with bare hands and walk away smiling. The test was complete. The words of the guide were real. And Tur knew, with a chill deeper than any fear, that if humans could tame monsters, they could tame anything. The council chamber was restless when Counselor Tur returned. His feathers were still fluff with the memory of Earth's forests, but his eyes carried something different: wonder, fear, and a quiet respect. He set the human book on the table once again. The others leaned forward, waiting for answers. Counselor Vryn clicked his mandibles impatiently. "Well, you lived. Speak." Tur's voice was low. "The words are true. I touched their predators. I felt their fangs close enough to pierce bone. Yet I live. They did not kill me." Gasps rose like thunder. Luther slammed his scaled hand onto the table. "Impossible. You bribed them. You tricked them. Nothing on a death world spares prey unless—" "No trick," Tur interrupted. His wings trembled, but his voice grew stronger. The beast obeyed because the human was calm, because she showed no fear. Her hand turned danger into peace. The chamber fell silent. All eyes turned to the human ambassador, who stood near the shadows, watching without concern. His voice broke the silence. "You still think our guide is about animals alone. It is not. It is about us, about how we survive." The aide turned the heavy pages. More drawings, more notes, not warnings, but lessons. Trust, approach, touch. Every page echoed the same message. Counselor Cross, the crystalline elder, spoke slowly, his body glowing with pale light. "Then the lesson is not survival at all. It is a philosophy." The human nodded once. "Exactly." Tur flared his wings. "Explain it, then. Why risk your lives with predators? Why reach for teeth instead of fleeing them?" The human stepped forward into the full light of the chamber. His voice was calm, measured, but carried weight that pressed against every ear. "Fear kills. Fear makes prey weak. Fear blinds the mind and freezes the body. If we fear everything, we die. If we face it, if we tame it, we live. We do not just survive on Deathworlds. We thrive. The words rolled through the chamber like a storm. Aliens shifted uncomfortably, some clutching at their robes, others hissing in disbelief. VRYNN's mandibles snapped. And you expect us to believe kindness conquers monsters? The human's eyes were steady. Not kindness. Courage. A predator does not respect weakness. It respects strength, the strength to stand without fear. A hand raised in calm is stronger than a wall built in terror. For a long time, no one spoke. Then the aide turned another page. This time, the sketch was not of an animal. It was of a storm, lightning, winds, chaos. The words beneath it read, "Storms cannot be feared. Walk into them, and you will learn their rhythm. Fear nothing, and the world itself bends to you." Luther's scales ripple with unease. They even defy their own skies. Ter whispered, "They defy everything." The realization spread like fire. The 847-page guide was not about beasts or weather. It was about the human mind, about how they refused to bow to danger, how they turned terror into companionship, how they bent hostile worlds by walking into them without fear. The chamber's air grew heavy. If such a philosophy spread, if other species learned it, entire empires might change. Counselor Cross leaned forward, voice sharp as cracking stone. "Do you not see? Their words are a weapon, not a blade, not a gun, but a way of thinking that makes fear useless. If fear dies, control dies with it." A shiver rippled through the assembly. The council had ruled for centuries by controlling fear. Fear of death, fear of war, fear of Deathworlds. And here stood humans, carrying a book that shattered fear in a single phrase. Pet everything. Fear nothing. The human ambassador closed the book gently. His eyes swept across the chamber. "Now you begin to understand. Our survival guide is not for us. We already live by it. It is for you, to see the universe as we see it." VRYNN hissed, mandibles rattling. "You mean to change us, to make us like you?" The human tilted his head slightly. "Perhaps. Or perhaps you are simply afraid of what you might become without your fear." No one answered. The chamber was silent, filled only with the weight of realization. Counselor Ter's feathers flattened slowly. His eyes were wide, but his voice was calm now. If this is true, if fear is the chain we wear, then humans are free. The word struck deeper than any weapon. The counselors looked at each other, each wondering the same thing. If humans truly feared nothing, then what limits could bind them? The book sat heavy on the table, its pages still waiting to be read. 847 lessons of courage. 847 lessons of defiance. 847 steps into a universe without fear. For the first time, the counselors did not see humans as reckless primitives or strange allies. They saw them as something far more dangerous. Not the strongest, not the largest, not even the fiercest, but the freest. And freedom, they realized, could conquer more than any weapon ever could. The jungle air was thick, wet, and heavy. Strange cries echoed from deep within the canopy, some sharp, some guttural, all alien to the ears of the visiting counselors. For most, the sound was terrifying. For the human walking at the front of the group, it was background music. The mission was simple, at least in words. A joint delegation would travel into one of Earth's untamed wild zones. They would witness the human way of survival. They would see for themselves whether the guide's lessons were truth or madness. Counselor Ter walked near the rear of the line, feathers damp from the humidity, eyes darting at every flicker of movement. Each shadow felt alive. His wings twitched at the rustle of leaves, the snap of branches, the sudden cry of a distant predator. Fear clung to him like a second skin. Beside him, Counselor Luther strode stiffly. Scales glistening, claws flexed. His people were hunters, but even he felt a chill in this place. His weapons were useless here. The trees were too dense for clear shots, the ground too uneven for quick strikes. If danger came, it would come from every direction at once. At the front, the human, Captain Mara, moved as if on a pleasant stroll. She carried no weapon but a simple knife strapped to her belt. Her hand brushed against tall grass as though greeting an old friend. Her eyes were sharp, scanning, but calm. The group stopped when a deep rumble shook the forest floor. Birds exploded from the canopy, screeching in alarm. The ground vibrated with heavy steps. Branches snapped. Leaves trembled. Something massive was moving toward them. Turf froze, feathers standing straight. Luther's claws extended fully, his tail whipping in agitation. Even the crystalline elder cross dimmed his inner glow in instinctive fear. Then it emerged. The beast towered above them, a wall of muscle and scales, for burning eyes fixed on the intruders. Its maw open, rows of teeth glistening with saliva, each one long enough to pierce a body clean through. Spines jutted from its back, rattling with menace. Its roar cracked through the jungle like thunder, shaking leaves from branches. The aliens panicked. Defensive positions. Luther shouted, already raising his claws. "We must flee." Ter shrieked, wings spreading wide. Cross began to hum in low tones, preparing his crystal body for a shattering blast. But Captain Mara did not draw her knife. She did not shout. She did not run. She stepped forward. Her voice was calm, soft, carried just enough to reach the beast. "Easy now. Easy." The alien counselor stared in disbelief. She was walking straight into death. The beast's roar dropped into a growl. Its eyes narrowed, its massive frame lowering closer to the ground. Drool hissed as it hit the soil. A single breath from its nostrils sent waves of heat against Mara's face. Every instinct screamed at her to flee. But humans had long ago learned the secret. Fear only made predators hungrier. She raised her hand. Open, steady, fingers relaxed. Slowly, she stepped closer. The counselors could hardly breathe. Luther's claws shook. "She is insane. She will be devoured." Ter whispered, "No, wait. Watch." The beast inhaled sharply, nostrils flaring. Its teeth flashed as it opened its mouth wider, a roar building deep in its chest. Mara did not flinch. She pressed her palm gently against its scaled snout. For one long, frozen moment, time seemed to stop. Then the impossible happened. The beast's growl softened. The roar died in its throat. Its head lowered further until its massive weight pressed against Mara's small hand. A deep rumble filled the air, not of threat, but contentment. The jungle fell silent, as if the world itself was holding its breath. Mara stroked the creature's scales, her voice a whisper. "That's it. You're not so bad, are you?" The beast blinked, a sound like a sigh escaping its maw. Then, with surprising gentleness, it turned and lumbered back into the forest, trees swaying as its bulk disappeared into the green. Silence. No one spoke. No one moved. Finally, Ter collapsed onto his knees, feathers trembling. She petted it. She tamed it with nothing but a hand. Cross's crystalline body pulsed with light, brighter than ever. This is beyond reason. This is faith. Courage. A weapon unlike any we know. Luther's scales shivered, his claws retracting. His voice was harsh but unsteady. No, not a weapon. A disease. If such thinking spreads, no creature, no empire, no enemy will be safe from them. They will tame everything. Mara turned back to them, her face calm, her hands still open as if the beast had left part of its presence there. "You see now, our guide is not a book of survival tricks. It is who we are. Fear nothing, and the world changes. Her words rang like a verdict. The aliens looked at one another, shaken. For the first time, they understood the scale of what they faced. Humans did not conquer with fire or steel. They conquered with fearlessness. They bent Deathworlds not by force, but by standing unflinching before them. The delegation continued deeper into the jungle, but no one spoke. Each counselor carried their own storm of thoughts. Ter felt both terror and awe. His kind had always fled from danger. To stand before it without trembling seemed godlike. Cross pondered the power of such a mindset, his glowing body humming with unease. If humans taught this to others, entire civilizations might rise beyond the Council's control. Luther clenched his fists, anger mixing with fear. He saw not strength but threat, a danger to the balance of power across the stars. The sun dipped low, shadows stretching across the jungle floor. The air grew colder, the cries of night beasts rising in the distance. The humans walked as if strolling through a quiet park. The aliens followed, their steps heavy, their minds broken. When they finally emerged from the trees into a clearing, the human ambassador was waiting, book in hand. His calm smile returned as he looked upon the shaken counselors. "You understand now," he said softly. 847 pages. Each a lesson in courage. Each a story of walking into danger without fear. What you saw today was only one page come alive. No one answered. The jungle behind them echoed with distant roars. But to Mara, they were only voices of old friends. She brushed dirt from her hands and walked past the delegation, her calmness more terrifying than the beast itself. The counselors knew then. The Deathworld Survival Guide was not just a manual. It was a declaration. And if humans could face monsters like that without trembling, then perhaps they could face anything, even the galaxy itself. The clearing fell silent as stars began to pierce the night sky. For the first time in a long time, the council felt small, and the humans, standing fearless at the center of it all, felt infinite. The council chamber was full again. The jungle trial was over, but its echoes had followed the delegation home. The air inside the grand hall seemed colder now, as if fear itself had crept in from the shadows of earth. Counselor Ter sat with feathers smooth flat, but his eyes were wide, restless. He had touched the beast. He had seen it bow its head at a human's hand. The memory replayed in his mind like a dream he could not escape. Luther sat hunched forward, claws tapping the table, his tail twitching in agitation. Anger radiated from him, but beneath it, there was something far more dangerous: uncertainty. Cross, the crystalline elder, glowed faintly, his fractured light shifting like storm clouds. He said little, but his silence carried more weight than speeches. At the center of the chamber, the human ambassador stood once more with the massive book before him. He opened it to a page near the end, the paper whispering as it turned. His voice was steady, calm, almost too calm. "You have seen a demonstration. You have seen one lesson brought to life. But you still do not understand the truth of these pages." The counselors leaned forward despite themselves. He continued, 847 lessons, each different, each the same. None about weapons, none about technology, none about fortresses. They are about one thing only: the human spirit. How to shape it, how to carry it, how to use it. VRYNN's mandibles clicked in agitation. "Speak plainly. What is this spirit?" The human turned a page. A sketch of a towering storm filled the parchment. Beneath it, the words: "Fear the storm, and it will destroy you. Walk into it, and it will guide you." He looked up. "The spirit is this. To humans, nothing is enemy by nature. Beasts, storms, even Deathworld themselves, these are not foes. They are challenges, opportunities to grow. And if faced without fear, they can be bent. They can be tamed. Luther hissed, claws scraping against the table. Madness. A storm is not a pet. A predator is not a friend. The universe is cruel. We survive because we respect that cruelty. The human smile was faint. Respect, yes. Fear, no. That is the difference. Tur's wings twitched. And what happens if fear disappears? If every being walks without it? The human turned another page. This time, the drawing was of a battlefield. Soldiers locked in combat. Smoke rising, weapons flashing. Yet beneath it, the words were not about war, but about laughter. Fear makes you slaves. Courage makes you free. Free beings cannot be broken. The counselor stirred uneasily. Cross finally spoke, his glowing form dimming. That is the truth, then. This guide is not for survival. It is for revolution. The words struck the chamber like a blade. The ambassador's calm eyes swept over them. Revolution of the mind. Yes, when fear dies, chains break. Empires fall. Beasts bow. Even death bends. That is the human way. For a long moment, the chamber was silent. The weight of those words pressed against every soul present. VRYNN snapped his mandibles in anger. You dare bring this poison here? You dare try to infect us with this philosophy? Do you mean to tear down the council? The human placed a hand on the book, steady, unafraid. I do not need to tear you down. The idea will do it on its own. That is the truth of these 847 pages. The aliens erupted in cries, overlapping shouts filling the air. They seek to remake us in their image. They will unbalance the galaxy. This cannot be allowed. Yet even as they shouted, their eyes betrayed doubt. Each of them had seen. Each of them remembered the beast bowing its head, the storm written in ink, the words that cut deeper than any blade. Tur raised his voice above the noise, his feathers puffing. What if he is right? What if our fear has always been the chain around our necks? What if humanity has shown us the way to break it? The chamber fell quiet again. All eyes turned to Tur. He trembled, but his words carried weight. I touched the predator with my own claws. I felt its breath on my face. By all reason, I should be dead. Yet I live, not because of weapons, not because of walls, because I followed their lesson. I feared nothing, and the beast obeyed. His voice cracked, but he continued. If one feathered scholar can do this in a single day, what might happen if whole species learned the same lesson? Cross glowed brighter, his crystal facets shimmering. Empires would shatter. Fear is the foundation of control. Without it, Luther snarled. Without it, chaos, anarchy, war. The human's voice cut through their fear. Without it, freedom. The word echoed. Freedom. For many, it was intoxicating. For others, terrifying. The ambassador closed the book gently, as though sealing its power once more. The truth of the 847 pages is simple. You have always believed the galaxy was ruled by fear. We do not. We know it is ruled by courage. And courage cannot be caged. VRYNN rose to his full height, his voice trembling with fury. Then you are dangerous beyond measure. You will not spread this. We will stop you. The human tilted his head, his calm smile unchanged. You cannot stop an idea. Once seen, it cannot be unseen. Once felt, it cannot be forgotten. Even now, your minds are shifting. The chains of fear are loosening. That is the truth. That is why the guide exists. The chamber trembled with silence once more. Some counselors lowered their heads, their thoughts racing. Some clutched at their robes, fighting against the seed now planted within them. And some, like Tur, stared at the human with wide eyes, as though seeing not an ambassador, but a herald of something vast and unstoppable. Cross whispered, almost to himself, his voice like cracking glass. If they can teach this to others, they may not need armies. They will conquer the galaxy one mind at a time. The book sat silent on the table, heavy with the weight of its words. 847 pages of freedom. And though no one said aloud, every council in the chamber felt the same chill. The human was right. The truth was already inside them. Fear had ruled them for centuries. Now, for the first time, they wondered if fear was nothing but a lie. The meeting adjourned in silence, but the silence was not peace. It was a silence of cracks spreading through stone. Something had changed, something that could not be undone, and the galaxy trembled at the thought. The chamber doors closed behind the human ambassador with a soft, final click. The echo carried to the council hall like the sound of a verdict being passed. Inside, silence lingered. No one dared speak first. The air was thick with unspoken dread, and yet, beneath it, something else stirred. Curiosity, possibility, a dangerous hope. Counselor Tur's wings shifted restlessly. He could still feel the phantom warmth of the predator's breath on his feathers. The raw terror he had forced himself to deny. That moment haunted him, but it also electrified him. He had survived. He had touched the impossible, and it had obeyed him. Cross, the crystalline elder, dimmed his light until he looked like a shard of stone. His voice cracked the silence. The danger is not the beasts. The danger is not the storms. The danger is not even the humans themselves. His faceted body pulsed faintly. The danger is the idea, courage that spreads like fire. VRYNN's mandibles clicked sharply. Then we smother the fire before it burns a galaxy. Luther slammed his claws against the table, scales shivering with unease. And how VRYNN, with fleets, with laws, with prisons, ideas slip through cracks. Words travel faster than ships. Once heard, they cannot be silenced. The silence deepened. They all knew he was right. Across the chamber, Tur leaned forward, feathers trembling. His voice shook, but it carried a new conviction. Perhaps it should not be silenced. Perhaps it should be learned. The others turned to him, horrified. You would welcome this corruption? VRYNN spat. His mandibles quivered with rage. It is not corruption, Tur whispered. It is freedom. I felt it. For the first time in my life, I was not prey. I was not chained by fear. For a heartbeat, I was... He stopped, unable to finish. But they all knew the word. Free. Cross glowed brighter. Shards catching the chamber light, like 1,000 blades. Do you not understand? If fear dies, our empires crumble. Our citizens obey because they fear our armies. They submit because they fear rebellion. They worship because they fear death. If that foundation breaks, everything we built falls into ruin. Tur met his crystalline gaze. Then maybe it should fall. The words hung in the chamber like a blade, suspended by a thread. VRYNN rose, mandibles clacking furiously. Treason. His voice screeched, sharp and shrill. You dare speak against the council itself? But no one moved to silence her. No guards dragged him away. Even Luther, scales rippling uneasily, said nothing, because deep inside, each counselor felt it too, the seed of doubt the humans had planted. The heavy doors creaked open again. The ambassador stepped back into the chamber, holding the book as though it were no burden at all. His calm eyes swept over them, measuring their silence. "You begun to understand," he said softly. "I can see it in your faces." VRYNN hissed, his fury snapping like fire. "We will not bow to you. We will not let you tear down the order of the galaxy." The human tilted his head, his calm unshaken. "I never asked you to bow. I asked you to stand." The words pierced deeper than any threat. The counselors shifted uneasily, their eyes betraying cracks spreading in their certainty. The ambassador opened the book once more. This time, he did not read aloud. Instead, he turned the massive tome toward them, revealing a final page they had not yet seen. The sketch was simple, almost childish. A human hand, extended open, not holding a weapon, not clenching a fist, simply open. Beneath it, 7 words were scrawled in bold strokes. Pet everything. Fear nothing. Become free. Silence followed. The counselor stared at the page as though it were a weapon more dangerous than any fleet. Cross spoke first, his voice quiet, almost reverent. This is not a guide at all. It is the Manifesto. The human closed the book with a soft thud. It is our truth. Now you must decide if it becomes yours. The council chamber erupted. Shouts echoed against the walls. Some voices demanding the book be destroyed, others insisting it must be studied, still others calling for the human's exile or even extermination. The arguments clashed like storms colliding, chaos filling the hall. Yet through the storm of voices, Tur's voice rose, trembling but unbroken. No matter what you do, it is too late. I have read the words. I have lived them. I will never see the galaxy the same way again. The chamber froze. The human's eyes flicked toward him, calm but sharp. And so it begins. The counselors turned on Tur, outrage boiling, but they did not act, because he was not alone. Others shifted uneasily, eyes betraying the same thought they dared not speak aloud. The seed was not just in Tur. It was in all of them. VRYNN trembled with fury, mandibles rattling. This cannot be allowed. If the idea spreads, it already has, the human said simply. The word struck like lightning. The counselors froze, realizing the truth. The book had left the chamber before. Copies could already exist. Whispers could already be spreading among servants, guards, even their own citizens. Fear's grip was slipping, and once it slipped, it would never return. The ambassador bowed his head slightly, almost polite. We will not force you. The guide is not a weapon to be imposed. It is a choice. But know this, once courage takes root, fear cannot rule again. You cannot unlearn freedom. He turned and began to walk toward the doors, each step echoing with finality. Where are you going? Luther demanded, his claws curling tight. The human paused at the threshold, looking back only once. His eyes burned with quiet certainty, to watch the galaxy change. And with that, he left. The chamber sat in stunned silence, the counselors staring at the closed doors. Tur whispered the words again, more certain this time. Pet everything. Fear nothing. Become free. Cross's crystalline form pulsed like a storm of light, reflecting the truth none of them could deny. The galaxy was on the edge of something vast and unstoppable. And deep within, each of them realized the same thing. Whether they embraced it or resisted it, nothing would ever be the same again. The 847 pages had spoken. The chains of fear were breaking. And the universe trembled, waiting to see what humanity would do next.